Hey KG, what's up? How you doing, man?
Good man. How you been?
Been great. Always good to have you on.
Yeah,
What
appreciate
do you
you.
got for me today?
Yeah, so we got a question from one of our listeners, and I'll go ahead and dive right in. So it says, "Hey guys, I'm a VP of IT at a U.S. manufacturing company. We've got 25 locations with about 1,500 employees across the country. Looks like we are moving our ERP to the cloud, so are now looking at a network transformation to support that migration. We have a ton of legacy stuff in the field and on the edge, so need to figure out best way to design a new network that is more secure with higher performance. Any insights into this would be much appreciated." All right, so I think this is a common thing that we're seeing, especially in the clients and manufacturing space specifically. A lot of ERP moves into the cloud, and then that obviously affects what are clients doing with the network. So Kyle, go ahead and toss you the ball here. What do you think?
Yeah, man. I mean, I guess I'll start by saying we see a lot of that, like you said, in manufacturing companies, right? They've traditionally kind of hub and spoke or got a head in, and they're out, delivering applications from typically some sort of HQ or a larger, site where they're hosting, their ERP on premise, and it's going out over some sort of hub and spoke type network. A lot of times it's even been MPLS. Even still, as recently as last year, we've encountered some of those. And so I think this journey that this particular VP is on is not abnormal. Pretty common when we're running into. I guess I would start by so good to know ERP is going to the cloud. You obviously want to know, okay, well, which cloud is it going to? Is it going to something with SAP? Is it going to a private cloud somewhere, and where that's hosted at? And then I would want to understand the other applications that are out there. So while the ERP may be driving it, what are they doing with their productivity applications, like Microsoft or Google? I mean, it's a manufacturing company. Very unlikely that they're on Google, but so most likely the kind of key Microsoft apps. Um, and then any other kind of key line of business applications that they're doing and where those are going to, right? Always important to understand what the future roadmap looks like. Um, and then the next piece, given that this particular VP, they're looking for higher performance of the network, that would indicate something around SD WAN or some sort of edge on ramps to the cloud, from each of the branch locations versus the traditional hub and spoke where you would backhaul the traffic and hairpin it. So I guess that would you know indicate something around SD WAN, but where that market is at is this kind of convergence of networking and security. And so we're quickly going to be in a conversation about security and their roadmap. What are they doing to protect their data and their end users, and then looking at you know whether they have point solutions that are out there in that environment today that could integrate with a possible SD WAN solution, or whether those things are on the roadmap. Then you want to that can drive basically some of the SD-WAN technology that they would look at, because you you don't want to end up implementing some point solution at the edge or for the network that helps with prioritizing traffic, but is going to clash with the security strategy down the road. So I think you want to take a really holistic view, at least to looking at what possible technologies out there, um, inclusive of the security strategy.
Oh, absolutely. I think to key on one of the first things that you talked about, right, was cloud specific, right? Because that word can mean a bunch of different things to quite a few different people. So understanding, what is their actual cloud strategy? Is that a private cloud, public cloud, some form of hybrid, and then given that, let's say they are in more of a public cloud versus private. What are the difference if you had to zero in on that? Are there any differences in advice that you would give to the client as they're looking at that cloud strategy, and then how that affects the network conversation?
Well, I mean, I think the public cloud, that deciding to host in Azure versus AWS or Google, like that's typically a much larger and strategic decision than, hey, what SD-WAN technology I'm going to use. So I would say you want to land on that first. If you're going to be going to one of those public clouds, that's going to be driven by your obviously financial considerations, but also your staff, their experience, as well as what you're actually hosting there, and how well it can run in those environments. But once you have that, that can drive which SD-WAN technology is right for you, because some of them have um, on ramps that you can deploy right to the edge. So essentially on universal CPE, so on edge equipment, right at the edge of your network, and get an on ramp directly to the cloud where you're hosting. So I would say you want to land kind of first on which of those public clouds are you looking at, and then let that drive some of the SD-WAN technologies. There's obviously other considerations in that, but that would be a primary driver to at least get your short list together.
Okay. All right. So I hear there's this convergence of SD WAN and security. I think you referenced it as SASE. So is it something? Do I go down to my local Best Buy and grab a SASE box, or how does that actually work in the real world?
Yeah, so really, SASE is more of a framework and a journey than actually being able to procure one specific solution at the corner, kind of at the corner store. There are some providers that are, I would say, more prepared to deliver against a holistic SASE framework. So there's some providers you can go to, and they really kind of have it all, and you can do it modularly, because again, it's kind of a journey. It's not like you're implementing all of it day one. You're usually starting with something that's key to the business. So in this case, it's network performance, right? Maybe starting with SD WAN, but you're looking at the other components of SASE, which are zero trust, secure web gateways, CASB, and next gen firewall, and looking at stacking that up against what you have out there today, because you may have some of those components in your environment today, and they may even be under contract, right? So you're really kind of bringing this in over time, typically, and executing, on again a journey against a framework, more so than like, hey, I got SASE and now I'm good.
Okay. And I think the way I understand that from what you just said is as opposed to some of the traditional procurement methods that we've seen of whenever you're buying a new solution, it is this very disruptive rip and replace. Kind of what you're describing is more of a over time. This thing can be either layered on top of a network or layered into existing security frameworks or edge management, so that it can be transformative without the same level of disruption. Is that accurate?
Yeah, well, and you're really kind of biting it off in bite-sized chunks. I mean, one of the things from this question was they have a ton of legacy stuff out in the field, right? And so, like, when I hear legacy stuff, right, I mean, I'm thinking routers, I'm thinking firewalls, maybe they're switching, maybe they're LAN side infrastructure, but inevitably, that's something that they have accumulated over time. Likely over a long time. I mean, it's a manufacturing company with 25 locations, right? Like, most likely this business has been running and doing this and accumulating these solutions that they have at the edge over time, and they're going to be in a variety of kind of current status, from things that they probably recently deployed all the way to things that are currently end of life, and maybe even pose a risk to the environment. So really, I guess it would begin with baselining and understanding where all of those assets are at, where their contracts are at on the underlying circuits, and then matching that up against the framework, and that's ultimately what creates your journey and allows you to step through it, in a minimally disruptive way.
Yeah. No, that sounds great and exciting. I mean, I think one of the first things, if I'm a client and there's some type of transformation that we're looking at, oftentimes the question is, how painful of a process is this going to be to get to that other side, right? To find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, because it's the first step that we've talked about is finding the right strategy, and then finding the right vendor. But then, what does that actually look like to get from where you're at to where you want to be? And I think that this is an emerging or technology that's out there that can have that transformation without as much of the historic disruption required to get there.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we like it when we can find something to step our way in there, right? I think that's generally much more preferable on the client side. I mean, I guess bringing it home on this though, I think the key takeaway and the biggest piece I would advise this particular VP based on what he said is to really learn a little bit about the SASE framework and understand what that journey could look like for him. A lot of times, people are coming in and they're saying, "Hey, I need to improve my network performance." Like that's a component, right? But when you consider the larger kind of SASE framework, you can find some additional impacts and also potentially find some things where you can pull out savings in other areas that help you fund either some of the security components or the network performance piece.
Okay. Well, hey, I appreciate answering the question, and look forward to sending you more your way.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle.